Young people, some in school uniform, are looting a tuck shop. Well, joining us now to discuss what actually happens when youngsters themselves become the perpetrators is the clinical manager of Childline, Nonhlanhla Biyase. All right, Nonhlanhla, thank you very much for being our guest here on Morning Live, and yeah, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Looking at the clip, you know, this is a reality. I mean, we talk about Child Protection Week, and we're always sort of talking about parents and adults abusing children. Let's talk about children abusing children, because that, I think, is a huge issue as well. I mean, something like that, a clip that you saw now, give us your response.
Well, my response is I'm not surprised. You know, listening to the news this morning, just sort of a very good example of how, as adults in this country, as a nation, we actually have normalized violence as a way to resolve conflict. And, you know, as you know, us as parents, we are the main or primary role model for the young ones and for the youth. So the children, sadly, or the youth, are just really role modeling the behavior that they see, which is we are very concerned about, but this is our reality as a country. We are known to be a very violent country. Yeah. So the children are just modeling, you know, the behavior that they see
which is
adults.
Absolutely frightening, because
it's very sad, actually.
We're seeing youngsters, we're seeing children in school uniforms, we're seeing kids that should be at school, and you know, this is the reality. I mean, these are the future generations of our country.
Yes.
And if they're behaving like this, and as you say, because of the role models that they have, and they're watching adults behave like this, and so what lessons are they learning?
Well, sadly, the lessons that they are learning, as we see, is that actually violence as a means of resolving a conflict or a dispute, you know, is acceptable, because that's what we see. And that's what's happening here, sadly. And it is a reminder for me, and yes, for us, that actually the cycle of violence in our country hasn't stopped. We haven't done much, really, to reverse, you know, the ways as a country and adults that we actually perceive conflict resolution, you know, in simple terms.
You know, discipline. I think this is the reality. You know, when there is no discipline in a society, you know, this is what happens. And I mean, discipline has to start at home. You know, many people can point fingers and say, yes, but what are government doing? I don't think government have a role in bringing up our children. Yes. You know, this is our responsibility. And the example that you give to your children perhaps shapes them in future life. I mean, that's what I was taught as a child. You know, my parents disciplined me, and that's the way it is. What happens in homes, you know, is the product of what goes out there. Is this what's missing in the fabric of society? Discipline, but not abusive discipline, because it's a difficult territory.
That's the problem that we have, actually. That's there are different perception in terms of how to discipline a child. Because most of how parents discipline their children is still very unacceptable, still very violent and punitive, and which actually leads to a child being violent themselves, because when a child is disciplined in a violent way, like, for example, being really hit very hard, then they don't learn the principle behind actually what I'm doing is wrong, because they learn to fear that, you know, when I go and steal or and loot on a shop like this, I must make sure that my mom or my dad doesn't see me, because if they see me, they will hit me. Rather than learning the principle that, no, you cannot really infringe on another person's rights. If you loot another person's shop, it's actually really infringing on their rights and on their privacy. So they do not learn the values and the principles behind the behavior. So that's the problem that we see, that, you know, we do not have what we call positive parenting skills still from our parents, where they discipline appropriately, they discipline non-violently. So that's the main problem important that we see. Yeah.
Excuse me. You know, another issue that we need to talk about, and I know we're seeing visuals of the looting and the misbehaving in this manner.
Yeah.
But you know, what about bullying at school? You know, there is something that I worry about, and I think every other parent worries about. It's another topic. Child-on-child violence. Protecting our children from other children, because we've heard of stories of children committing suicide because they're being bullied at school. We're hearing, you know, terrible behavior from children to children. And I mean, it doesn't end just in school hours. You have social media where it continues, BBM chat rooms, and, you know, it's becoming so difficult that if you as a child don't fit in and you're not that stereotype of a cool kid or whatever it is these days, your life is a living hell. What does Childline do to help?
Well, you know, we've got a 24-hour service. It's a telephonic counseling service where any child, any adult, you know, calls. It's a free number if they feel, you know, they are being bullied at school, and if they feel that, or they are just being violated at home. But further to that, we have a program that is called CAP. It's child abuse awareness campaign. They go into school. They actually teach children about their rights, and that program also creates awareness about bullying and actually disnormalizing it, if there's such a word, because the culture that we have, even in school, sadly, is, you know, it's just teasing. Whereas, you know, bullying in schools has crossed the line from just a normal child teasing to actually being really harmful. So what the program does, they create awareness about bullying and also actually enforce, because each and every school is supposed to have some police around bullying and how to handle bullying in the school. So it's to help the schools through their teachers' workshops as well, to be able to handle the bullying situation in school and to take appropriate disciplinary measures and to support both the perpetrator or the bully or the victim as well, because both usually needs help.
We have to wrap, but just very quickly, I mean, if there is I think they've gone to school, however, but I mean, if there is a parent or a child, for instance, that is watching and they are being bullied at school, what's that advice? Very quickly, what do you tell them to do? What is the best thing to do?
I think I would just say, tell somebody until you are heard, because normally they are not heard. But just keep telling somebody until something changes, until somebody does something about it. Because it's not acceptable. And it's normalized, but it's not acceptable.
All right. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
I know it's an issue that we could carry on about, but I think you've given us some great information. Nonhlanhla Biyase is a manager for clinical manager for Childline. We've given you all the details on the screen. Please get hold of them if you need help in any which way. It's very important information out there. All right, let's take a break.